July 18th, 1944. 24,000 feet above the Austrian Alps. A Messerschmitt Bf 109 explodes. The fuel tank ruptures. Orange fire consumes the cockpit. The German pilot inside has 47 kill marks on his rudder. He survived Stalingrad. He survived the Eastern Front. He survived 3 years of air combat against the best pilots in the world. He just got killed by a teenager from Wisconsin. The American who pulled the trigger is Second Lieutenant Robert Goebel, 19 years old, baby face, skinny frame. Back home in Racine, he cannot legally buy a beer. His uniform looks 2 sizes too big. When he arrived at the 31st Fighter Group 6 weeks ago, the veteran pilots took one look at him and started placing bets. How long will the kid last? 2 weeks, maybe 3. The smart money says he will not survive July. They are dead wrong. By the end of this war, this teenager will have 11 confirmed kills. He will shoot down aces with 50, 60, 80 victories. He will become one of the youngest combat legends in the entire European theater. And he will do it all without ever losing his temper, without ever panicking, without ever making a single reckless move. His secret? Mathematics. While other pilots fly on instinct, Goebel flies on calculations. While others react with emotion, he responds with geometry. He has turned aerial combat into a physics equation, and the German aces have no idea what is coming for them. This is the story of the kid they called the dead man walking, the teenager who rewrote the rules of air combat, the boy who outsmarted the most dangerous fighter pilots on Earth. Not with aggression, not with luck, with his brain. Let me take you back 6 weeks. June 1944, Italy. The 15th Air Force is bleeding. Every morning, hundreds of B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators take off from Foggia. Their targets are the oil refineries at Ploiesti, the factories of Vienna, the industrial heart of Nazi Germany. Every morning, the Luftwaffe rises to meet them. These German pilots are not rookies. They are survivors, men who have been killing since 1940, men with 50, 80, 100 victories painted on their aircraft. They fly the Messerschmitt Bf 109G and the Focke-Wulf 190, fast, deadly, flown by experts who know every trick in the book. The American losses are catastrophic. March 1944 alone, 318 bombers lost. That is over 3,000 young men, dead, captured, missing, in a single month. The German tactic is simple and brutal. They call it the company front attack. 12 fighters in a line, all diving together, all firing at once. The bombers never stand a chance. The American escort fighters are supposed to stop this, but the P-38s and P-47s do not have the range. They can only fly part way to the target before turning back. And in those hours without protection, the German aces feast. Command is desperate. They need a fighter that can go all the way. They need pilots who can match the German experts in single combat. They get the P-51 Mustang, the finest propeller fighter of the war, fast, long-legged, 6.50 caliber machine guns. But a plane is only as good as its pilot, and most replacement pilots arriving in Italy have less than 200 hours of flight time. They are green, inexperienced, terrified. The Germans call them easy kills. Into this slaughterhouse walks Robert Goebel. He steps into the officers' club at the 31st Fighter Group. The room goes quiet. The veterans stop drinking. They stare at this kid with his baby face and his too big uniform. One pilot later recalled exactly what he thought. This boy will not survive his first week. Nobody offers to shake his hand. Nobody welcomes him. They have seen too many young faces come and go. Why bother learning his name? He will be dead soon anyway. Goebel notices their stares. He says nothing. He finds a corner. He sits alone. But here is what those veterans do not know. Here is what nobody understands yet. Robert Goebel is different. He is not flying on adrenaline like the other young pilots. He is not flying on patriotism or ego or the need to prove himself. He is flying on numbers. During flight school, while other cadets were drinking and chasing women, Goebel was in his barracks with a slide rule. He memorized the turn rate of every German fighter at every speed and altitude. He calculated exactly how much energy a P-51 loses in a 3G turn versus a 6G turn. He studied the wing loading of the Bf-109. He analyzed the roll rate of the Focke-Wulf 190. He knows that a Bf-109G turns tighter than a Mustang below 250 miles per hour. He knows that a Focke-Wulf can reverse direction almost instantly. He knows the exact altitude where his Merlin engine produces maximum power. Goebel does not see aerial combat as a duel. He sees it as a geometry problem. A math equation with life and death as the only two answers. His first missions, he stays quiet. He flies wingman. He watches. He learns. He observes how the German aces set their traps. The split S, the sunblind ambush, the feint and drag. He catalogs every trick. He files them away. He begins building counter-tactics in his mind. The other pilots notice something strange about him. He asks unusual questions in briefings. He wants to know the exact cruise speed of the Bf-109 at 20,000 feet. He wants technical manuals, not war stories. Some think he is scared. Others think he is weird. None of them understand. Goebel is preparing for war the way a chess grandmaster prepares for a tournament. He is studying his opponents. He is memorizing their patterns. He is waiting for his moment. July 18th arrives. Target: Memmingen Airfield, southern Germany. Deep penetration mission. The 31st Fighter Group is escorting B-17s all the way. Goebel climbs into his P-51D Mustang, the Flying Dutchman. His hands are steady. His breathing is calm. He has been waiting for this. Over the target, the radio explodes. "Bandits! 12 o'clock high! 40 plus!" German fighters, diving on the bombers. It is Jagdgeschwader 3, the Udet wing, the elite. White spiral spinners, pilots with over 200 kills between them. The sky becomes chaos. Tracers everywhere, aircraft spinning, engines screaming. Goebel's flight leader dives into the fight. Goebel follows. They bounce a group of Bf-109s. The leader fires, misses, breaks left. Then Goebel sees it, a yellow-nosed 109, coming fast. The German pilot executes a perfect high-side yo-yo. He trades altitude for position. He drops directly onto the tail of Goebel's flight leader. The leader screams, "Brake! Brake! I have one on my 6!" Goebel has 1 second to decide. Standard doctrine says turn hard, cut off the angle, force the overshoot. But Goebel's brain is already calculating. If I turn, I lose energy. The German is faster. He will pull up, loop over, kill me in the stall. Goebel does the opposite of what doctrine demands. He pushes the stick forward. The P-51's nose drops. G-forces unload. The aircraft accelerates instantly as wing drag disappears. Goebel dives. Not away from the fight, under it. The German ace sees the rookie dive. He ignores him. Another coward running away. He stays focused on the flight leader. He lines up his shot. Fatal mistake. Goebel is not running. He is building energy. He drops 2,000 feet. Airspeed hits 450 miles per hour. Then, with surgeon's hands, he pulls back. The Mustang's momentum converts into a zoom climb. He rockets upward, near vertical. The German is concentrating on his gun sight. He does not look down. Goebel rises from below like a shark. Blind spot. Perfect position. Most pilots would spray and pray. Goebel waits. 400 yards, 300 yards, 200 yards. He calculates deflection. The German is banking slightly. Lead him by 2 plane lengths. Goebel squeezes the trigger. 2 seconds. 6 guns. The rounds converge on the wing root, the fuel tank. Explosion! The 109 disintegrates. Goebel does not celebrate. He does not yell. He rolls inverted, dives again, checks his 6, regains energy. Speed is life. Altitude is insurance. He just killed a veteran ace. His heart rate never changed. That night, the gun camera footage plays in the briefing room. The veterans watch in silence. They see the dive. They see the energy trap. They see the precision. "Who flew that?" the commander asks. "The kid, Goebel." Long pause. He flies like an old man. The highest compliment a fighter pilot can receive. But Goebel knows this is only the beginning. The Germans are not finished. They are building weapons that will make his calculations obsolete. Jet fighters that fly 100 miles per hour faster than any Mustang. Rocket interceptors that climb straight up like missiles. The math is about to change, and Goebel will have to change with it. In Part 2, we will see how a 19-year-old pilot faced the most advanced aircraft of World War II. We will watch him hunt the unhuntable. We will witness his most desperate battles against machines that should have been impossible to defeat. The kid from Wisconsin was about to fight the future with weapons of the past. And he had already figured out how to win. A 19-year-old kid from Wisconsin just killed a veteran German ace over the Alps. Robert Goebel, babyface, skinny frame. 6 weeks ago, the veterans bet he would not survive July. Now they are buying him drinks. But Goebel is not celebrating. He is thinking. Because he knows something the others do not. The Germans are changing. The easy kills are gone. The rookies have been weeded out. What remains in the Luftwaffe are the survivors, the experts, the killers with 50, 80, 100 victories. And they are hunting him now. By August 1944, American intelligence officers began hearing a disturbing pattern from captured German pilots. The Luftwaffe High Command had issued new orders. Target the Mustang flight leaders. Kill the best American pilots first. Cut off the head of the snake. Robert Goebel had just become a marked man. The veterans in the 31st Fighter Group still did not understand how he survived. Most American pilots flew like brawlers. They used the Mustang's speed to slash through formations, spraying bullets, relying on aggression and durability to get home. Goebel was different. He was a fencer. He never turned with a German unless he had the speed advantage. He never chased a wounded enemy into the clouds. He never broke formation to chase a kill. Every single engagement was a math equation. Energy in, energy out. Speed versus altitude. Angle versus distance. His crew chief, Sergeant George Roeder, noticed something strange about the Flying Dutchman. It almost never came back with bullet holes. "Lieutenant," Roeder asked one day, "do the Germans even shoot at you?" Goebel smiled. That shy 19-year-old smile. They shoot, Pop. They just shoot where I was, not where I am. But the Luftwaffe was adapting, and on August 18, 1944, Robert Goebel found himself completely alone over the oil fields of Ploiesti, Romania. The 15th Air Force was pounding the refineries, flak so thick it looked like black wool. Goebel had been separated from his wingman during a chaotic dive. He was at 24,000 feet. Scanning, searching. He saw a single dot, 3 o'clock high. Most rookies would have turned toward it. Goebel did not. He checked the sun. The dot was positioning itself directly in the glare. Hiding. Waiting. He is hunting me, Goebel realized. This was a trap. The German pilot was waiting for Goebel to turn. The turn would bleed his speed. Then the German would dive out of the sun. Goebel would be blind until the last second. Standard doctrine said to brake hard, evade, run. Goebel did the opposite. He leveled his wings. He pretended he had not seen the hunter. He held his course. Steady. Calm. He was the bait. The German took it. It was a Messerschmitt Bf 109K4, the fastest, most lethal version of the German fighter. The pilot was clearly an expert. He waited until he was 400 yards away before firing. Crack. Thump. A 20mm cannon shell exploded near Goebel's tail. Shrapnel peppered the rudder. Metal fragments sliced through aluminum. Goebel did not panic. He did not brake left or right. He pulled the nose up 30 degrees, and he chopped the throttle to idle. It was a suicidal move. In a dogfight, speed is life. To kill your speed is to dig your own grave. But Goebel was initiating something called the rolling scissors. The German pilot, screaming in at 450 miles per hour, suddenly found himself closing on a target that had practically stopped in midair. He was going too fast. He could not slow down. If he tried to turn hard, the G-forces would rip his wings off. The German shot past Goebel's canopy, missing by feet. Goebel saw the pilot's helmet. He saw the iron cross on the fuselage. He saw the kill marks on the rudder. Now the tables were turned. The rolling scissors is a contest of who can fly the slowest without crashing. It is a series of barrel rolls and reversals. Each pilot tries to force the other out in front. It requires delicate touch. You have to ride the edge of the stall, feel the wings buffet, dance on the rudder pedals. Most pilots panic. Most pilots overcorrect. Most pilots stall. Goebel was patient. The German was aggressive. He fought the controls. He tried to force his nose around. He was getting frustrated. Goebel was gentle. He felt the Mustang shivering. He knew he was 1 knot away from a spin. Wait, he told himself. Wait for him to make the mistake. And then it happened. The German got greedy. He tried to pull his nose up for a snapshot. He pulled too hard. The airflow over his wings broke. The Bf 109 stalled. It snapped violently to the right, tumbling out of control. Goebel did not follow immediately. He rolled upright. He regained energy. He let the German fall. The enemy pilot recovered from the spin at 15,000 feet. But he had lost all his speed. He was a sitting duck. Goebel slid in behind him. Range 200 yards. He did not need a deflection shot. He lined up the rudder. The .50 calibers sawed the tail off the Messerschmitt. The German pilot bailed out. His parachute opened. Goebel circled once. He did not shoot the man in the silk. That was a war crime. He just tipped his wing. Class dismissed. By September, Goebel's reputation had crossed enemy lines. Captured German pilots kept mentioning a flight leader in the 31st who refused to dogfight. "He does not turn," one captured Hauptmann told American interrogators. "He waits. He climbs. He traps you. It is like fighting a calculator." Goebel was 19 years old. He was rewriting the rules of high-altitude combat. And now he was teaching. "Vertical," Goebel told his flight in the briefing room. He drew lines on the chalkboard. "Always take it vertical. The Mustang is heavier. It holds energy better in a climb. If you turn, you die. If you climb, you win." He was teaching energy management before the term existed. But the pilots under his command were not all believers. Some were older than him. Some had more hours in the cockpit. And some thought this skinny kid from Wisconsin was too cautious, too mathematical, too boring. One such pilot was Second Lieutenant John Sublett, eager, aggressive, fresh from the States. On a mission over Hungary, Sublett broke formation to chase a damaged Bf-109. "Sublett, get back in formation," Goebel barked. "It is a trap." "I got him, Captain. He is smoking." Sublett dove after the German. Goebel watched from above. He saw what Sublett could not: a second German fighter, the wingman, sliding out of the clouds, lining up behind Sublett. Goebel rolled over. He dove. War emergency power. 70 inches of manifold pressure. The engine screamed. He was racing death. Sublett was fixated on his kill. The German wingman was lining up the shot. Sublett had maybe 3 seconds to live. Goebel fired from 600 yards, extreme range. His tracers arced over Sublett's canopy and frightened the German. The enemy pilot broke right. Sublett pulled up, shaking. "You are welcome," Goebel said. "Now get back on my wing." That night, Sublett tried to buy Goebel a drink. Goebel refused. "I do not want your drink, Jack. I want you to listen. The German you see is the bait. The German you do not see is the killer. Break formation again, and I will ground you myself." It was harsh. It was unlike the quiet kid from Wisconsin. But Goebel understood something the eager young pilots did not. Being nice gets people killed. October 7th, 1944. The day everything changed. Goebel was leading a flight over Vienna. Heavy flak. But the Luftwaffe fighters were strangely absent. Then he saw it. A streak of white smoke, rising vertically from the ground. Not a rocket. Not artillery. A plane. It climbed straight up. It passed 30,000 feet in seconds. It leveled off and accelerated toward the bomber formation. Goebel had never seen anything move that fast. It was the Messerschmitt Me-163 Comet, a rocket-powered interceptor. Bat wings, no tail. It had a rocket engine that burned for only 7 minutes. But in those 7 minutes, it could reach 600 miles per hour. Goebel's Mustang topped out at 440. "Bandit, 6 o'clock, moving fast," Goebel shouted. He pushed his throttle to the wall. He tried to intercept. But it was like chasing a Ferrari on a bicycle. The Comet blew past him. The German pilot fired his 30mm cannons at a B-24 Liberator. Boom! The bomber lost a wing. It spiraled down. The Comet zoomed up, cut its rocket motor, and vanished into the sun. Goebel sat in his cockpit, stunned. He had spent months mastering the physics of propeller combat. He knew every turn rate, every climb speed, every trick. But how do you fight a ghost? How do you outsmart something that is 200 miles per hour faster than you? Goebel's math was obsolete. The game had changed. If he wanted to survive the next month, he would have to throw out the rulebook completely. He keyed his mic. "Flight, stay close. We cannot chase that thing. We have to trap it." The 19-year-old had just seen the future of aerial warfare. Jet engines, rocket power, speeds that made his Mustang look like a biplane, and he had already started calculating how to beat it. In Part 3, we will see how Robert Goebel hunted the unhuntable. We will watch him develop tactics to destroy aircraft that should have been impossible to catch. We will witness his most dangerous missions deep into enemy territory. The Germans thought their wonder weapons would turn the tide of the war. They did not know that a teenager from Wisconsin had already figured out their weakness. A 19-year-old kid from Wisconsin rewrote the rules of aerial combat. Robert Goebel turned dogfighting into mathematics. He killed veteran German aces with geometry and patience. By September 1944, captured Luftwaffe pilots described him as a calculator. But on October 7th, everything changed. Goebel saw a Messerschmitt Me-163 Comet rocket past him at 600 miles per hour. His Mustang topped out at 440. The German wonder weapon destroyed a B-24 bomber in seconds and vanished into the sun. The physics Goebel had mastered were now obsolete. The Germans were not just building rocket planes, they were building jets. The Messerschmitt Me-262 Schwalbe. Twin turbojet engines, 540 miles per hour, 4 30mm cannons. It could climb faster, dive faster, and fly faster than any Allied fighter in existence. American intelligence estimated the Luftwaffe had over 1,400 Me-262s in production. If they reached full deployment, the bomber offensive would collapse. Robert Goebel had a choice: accept that his tactics were useless against these machines, or find a new way to kill them. He chose to hunt. The Me-262 seemed invincible. At 30,000 feet, cruising at 540 miles per hour, no Mustang could catch it. No Thunderbolt could intercept it. The German jet pilots would scream through bomber formations, fire their cannons, and disappear before the escorts could react. But Goebel was not looking at what the jet could do. He was looking at what it could not do. He spent nights in the intelligence tent, reading reports, studying fuel logs, analyzing engine specifications. He found the weakness. The Me-262 had Junkers UMO 004 engines. They were revolutionary. They were also fragile. If the pilot advanced the throttle too quickly, the engines would flame out or explode. The jet needed a long, smooth runway for takeoff. It needed careful throttle management during landing. And during those critical moments, the 540-mile-per-hour wonder weapon slowed to 150 miles per hour. It became a sitting duck. "We do not chase them," Goebel told his flight. "We wait for them to come home." The tactic was called rat catching. Loiter over enemy airfields, wait for the jets to land, kill them when they are slow and vulnerable. Most commanders considered it suicidal. German airfields bristled with flak batteries, 88mm guns, 20mm cannons, quad machine guns. Flying low over those bases was like diving into a hornet's nest. "Sir," Goebel argued, "they are invulnerable at 30,000 feet. But at 500 feet, on final approach, they are just slow, heavy airplanes with no gas." October 22nd, 1944. Goebel led 4 Mustangs deep into enemy territory. Their target was not a bomber formation. Their target was an airfield near Linz, Austria. Goebel climbed to 15,000 feet. He positioned his flight in the sun. He waited. Below, the flak batteries tracked them. Above, Contrails showed German jets attacking bombers somewhere to the north. Goebel ignored both. 10 minutes passed. 15. There. 2 Me-262S, diving from altitude, heading for the runway. Out of fuel, out of ammunition, out of options. The jets entered the landing pattern. Landing gear dropped. Flaps extended. Airspeed dropped from 500 to 200 to 150 miles per hour. "Drop tanks," Goebel ordered. The 4 Mustangs shed their external fuel tanks. They dove. Goebel used gravity to turn his P-51 into a missile. He closed on the trailing jet. 400 yards, 300 yards, 200 yards. The German pilot never saw him. He was focused on his instruments, checking fuel, watching airspeed, preparing to land. Goebel squeezed the trigger. The jet's right engine exploded. The Jumo 004 turbine shattered. Turbine blades sliced through the fuselage. The Me-262 flipped and crashed into the forest. The lead jet pilot saw the explosion. He panicked. He slammed his throttles forward. Fatal mistake. The Jumo engines choked on the sudden fuel. A tongue of flame shot from the exhaust. The jet did not accelerate. It stalled. Goebel's wingman, Lieutenant Bob Verlockus, swept in. 3-second burst. The second jet disintegrated. 2 wonder weapons destroyed in 30 seconds. Not by speed, not by superior technology, by tactics. But the war was not over, and hunting jets over enemy airfields came with a price. November 1944. Goebel was promoted to captain. He was barely 20 years old. He commanded a flight of men who were older than him, men with more flying hours, men who should have been giving him orders. The stress began to show. He was not just responsible for his own survival anymore. He was responsible for theirs. Every mission, he calculated not just his own angles, but the angles of his wingmen. Every German fighter was a threat not just to him, but to the pilots trusting his leadership. He became even more conservative, more mathematical, more cold. He enforced strict radio discipline. If you talk, you die. Eyes out of the cockpit. Check 6 every 30 seconds. Fly straight for more than a minute, and you are a target. Some of the younger pilots thought he was too rigid. They wanted glory. They wanted kills. They wanted to be heroes. Goebel wanted them alive. The war ground toward its end, but the Luftwaffe was dying hard. The pilots still flying were fanatics and aces who refused to surrender. Every mission was a fight against the best Germany had left. March 24th, 1945. Goebel's final significant combat. He spotted a Focke-Wulf 190D9, the Dora, the ultimate piston engine fighter of the Luftwaffe. Fast, high-altitude capable, deadly. The pilot was clearly an expert. He initiated the fight. He dove on Goebel from above. Goebel turned into the attack. Classic defensive break. The two planes merged at 800 miles per hour closure rate. They passed within feet of each other. The dogfight began. But it was not a turning fight. It was a vertical fight. The Dora had immense climbing power. The German pulled straight up, trying to stall Goebel out. Standard tactic. Force the American to follow, wait for him to run out of energy, kill him at the top. Goebel knew his Mustang could not climb with the Dora. If he followed, he would stall first. He would become a target. So he did not follow. As the German climbed, Goebel spiraled down, building speed, building energy. The German pilot saw Goebel drop. He thought he had won. He leveled off at the top of his climb. He rolled over to dive for the kill. But Goebel had used the dive to build massive kinetic energy. As the German rolled over, Goebel pulled back. He rocketed upward, trading speed for altitude. He shot up like an elevator. The German was descending. Goebel was ascending. They met in the middle. It was a deflection shot of impossible difficulty. Goebel was climbing at 60 degrees. The German was diving at 40 degrees. He had a fraction of a second. He had to lead the target by 4 plane lengths. He was shooting at a spot in empty space where the German would be. He squeezed the trigger. The rounds walked into the path of the Focke-Wulf. The engine cowling shattered. The canopy blew off. The German plane did not explode. It just ceased to fly. It rolled onto its back and fell into a flat spin. Goebel watched it go down. "Splash number 11, he whispered. He was 21 years old. He had just beaten the best piston fighter Germany ever built. He had 11 confirmed kills, Distinguished Flying Cross, Silver Star. The veteran pilots who once bet he would not survive July were now studying his gun camera footage. The captured German pilots were right. Fighting Robert Goebel was like fighting a calculator. By April 1945, the Luftwaffe had effectively ceased to exist. The skies over Germany were empty. The wonder weapons that were supposed to turn the tide had been neutralized. Not by superior technology, not by overwhelming numbers, by tactics. Goebel's rat-catching technique spread throughout the 15th Air Force. Mustang pilots stopped chasing jets in the stratosphere. They started hunting them at their airfields. The Me-262 kill rate climbed. German jet losses mounted. The fastest aircraft in the world had been defeated by patience, geometry, and a teenager from Wisconsin who refused to play by their rules. But the war was ending, and Robert Goebel was about to face something harder than any German ace. He was about to go home. In Part 4, we will see what happened to the baby-faced ace after the guns fell silent. We will discover how his tactics became the foundation of modern air combat doctrine. We will learn why his name is still taught at fighter weapons schools around the world. And we will understand the price he paid for becoming a legend at 19 years old. The final chapter of Robert Goebel's story is one that few people know. A teenager from Wisconsin changed aerial combat forever. Robert Goebel arrived in Italy at 19 years old, babyface, skinny frame. The veterans bet he would not survive 2 weeks. He proved them wrong with mathematics. He killed veteran German aces with geometry and patience. He hunted jet fighters with tactics instead of speed. He scored 11 confirmed kills, Distinguished Flying Cross, Silver Star. By April 1945, captured Luftwaffe pilots called him a calculator. But the war was ending, and Robert Goebel was about to face something harder than any German ace. He was about to become a civilian again. This final chapter has a twist that few people know, because the hardest battle for Robert Goebel was not fought in the skies over Europe. It was fought in his own mind. April 1945. Robert Goebel received his orders to go home. Most pilots celebrated. They threw parties, they shot flares, they drank until dawn. Goebel felt nothing. He had spent the most formative years of his life in a cockpit. He learned to kill before he learned to vote. He had calculated firing solutions while his classmates back home were calculating tips at restaurants. He had watched men die while his friends were watching baseball games. The adrenaline, the mathematics, the life or death precision. It had been his entire world. On his final flight, ferrying the Flying Dutchman to a depot for decommissioning, Goebel took the long way. He flew over the Alps one last time. He looked down at the jagged peaks where he had fought the Messerschmitts. He followed the Brenner Pass, the flak alley where he had lost friends. He realized he was leaving the only place where he truly understood the rules. Up here, everything made sense. Speed, altitude, angle, energy. Life and death were math problems with clear solutions. Down there, in the civilian world, nothing was calculated. Nothing was precise. Nothing was certain. He landed the plane. He patted the aluminum skin. "Good girl," he whispered. He signed the logbook one last time. Then he walked away without looking back. Robert Goebel returned to Racine, Wisconsin in the summer of 1945. The transition was jarring. One week he was commanding a flight of high-performance fighters, deciding who lived, deciding who died. The next week he was sitting in his parents' kitchen, eating meatloaf, listening to the radio. He enrolled at the University of Wisconsin to study physics. It made sense. Physics had saved his life. But Goebel was different from the other students. He sat in the back of the lecture halls. When the professors talked about velocity and vectors, Goebel did not see numbers on a chalkboard. He saw Focke-Wulf's stalling. He saw tracers arcing through the sky. He saw the face of the German pilot he shot down over Ploiesti. He rarely spoke about the war. To his classmates, he was just Bob, the quiet guy who was good at math. They did not know he was one of the top Mustang aces of the 15th Air Force. Years later, at a reunion, a fellow pilot asked him why he never bragged. "What is there to brag about?" Goebel replied. "We did a job. The Germans were good pilots. We just had better fuel and better planes. And maybe we were a little luckier." It was the classic humility of the greatest generation. But it hid a deep respect for the enemies he had outsmarted. Goebel knew that the difference between being an ace and being a casualty was often a matter of inches. A single decision to push the stick forward instead of pulling it back. But his legacy did not end with the war. The tactics Robert Goebel developed at 19 years old became the foundation of modern air combat doctrine. Energy management. The idea that speed and altitude are currency to be spent wisely. This concept, which Goebel applied instinctively in 1944, is now taught in every fighter pilot training program in the world. The vertical fight. The understanding that turning bleeds energy, while climbing preserves it. Goebel proved this over the Alps with .50 caliber machine guns. Today, F-22 Raptor pilots prove it with missiles. Situational awareness. The discipline of always checking your six, always knowing where the enemy is, always seeing the trap before it closes. Goebel drilled this into his flight in 1944. Modern fighter pilots drill it with billion-dollar simulators. When Air Force instructors teach energy maneuverability theory, they are teaching the mathematical language that Bob Goebel was speaking instinctively in 1944. His book, Mustang Ace, became required reading, not because it glorified combat, not because it celebrated kills, but because it explained the thinking. Goebel broke down the geometry of his fights. He explained the rolling scissors with the precision of a professor. He revealed how a 19-year-old could defeat pilots with decades of experience. The answer was never aggression. The answer was never luck. The answer was always mathematics. His tactics spread beyond the United States. The Royal Air Force studied his engagements. The Israeli Air Force incorporated his principles. Fighter pilots in Korea, Vietnam, and the Gulf Wars applied concepts that Goebel pioneered over 60 years earlier. Estimates suggest that energy management tactics have saved thousands of pilots since World War II. Every fighter pilot who survives a dogfight by climbing instead of turning owes something to the teenager from Wisconsin who figured it out first. But the deepest lesson of Robert Goebel's story is not about tactics. It is about thinking. Goebel proved that the most dangerous weapon in warfare is not the fastest plane or the biggest gun. It is the human mind. He was not the strongest pilot. He was not the most aggressive. He was not the most experienced. He was a skinny kid who looked too young to be in uniform. But he thought differently. While other pilots reacted with instinct, he responded with calculation. While others flew with emotion, he flew with equations. He turned chaos into geometry. He turned survival into science. And he won. This pattern repeats throughout military history. The innovators who change warfare are rarely the ones with the most resources. They are the ones who see problems differently. Billy Mitchell proved that airplanes could sink battleships when admirals said it was impossible. John Boyd developed energy maneuverability theory that revolutionized fighter design. Dick Fosbury changed the high jump with a technique everyone called ridiculous. The system always resists new ideas. The experts always say it cannot work. The veterans always bet against the rookies. And sometimes, the rookies prove them all wrong. There is one final detail that most people do not know. Robert Goebel kept flying after the war. Not in combat, but he never fully left the cockpit. He became an aerospace engineer. He worked on projects that shaped the future of aviation. The same mathematical mind that calculated deflection angles over the Alps now calculated trajectories for spacecraft. The skills he developed killing German aces at 19 helped send Americans to the moon. And there is something else. Late in his life, Goebel was asked what he thought about when he remembered the war. Did he think about the victories? The medals? The glory? No, he said. I think about the ones who did not come home. He remembered the pilots who made the mistakes he avoided. The ones who turned when they should have climbed. The ones who chased when they should have waited. The ones who flew with emotion instead of mathematics. He survived because he thought. They died because they did not. That weight never left him. Robert Goebel passed away in 2011 at the age of 88. But his legacy continues in every fighter pilot who climbs into a cockpit, every student who studies energy management, every instructor who teaches that thinking beats reacting. From a skinny teenager with a baby face and a uniform 2 sizes too big, to one of the most influential combat pilots in American history. Robert Goebel proved that you do not need to be the oldest. You do not need to be the strongest. You do not need to be the most aggressive. You just need to be the smartest. The veterans who bet he would not survive 2 weeks were wrong. The German aces who dismissed him as another coward were wrong. The experts who said his tactics were too conservative were wrong. In a war of machines, Robert Goebel proved that the most dangerous weapon is not made of aluminum and gunpowder. It is made of neurons. If you know other stories of underdogs who changed history with their minds instead of their muscles, share them in the comments. History is full of teenagers, misfits, and nobodies who refused to accept that they could not win. Subscribe to discover more forgotten heroes. Turn on notifications, because the greatest stories are often the ones that almost got lost. And remember what Robert Goebel taught us. Speed is life. Altitude is insurance. But thinking is everything. The Germans called him a calculator. History calls him a legend.